things like that. But I didn't know that growing up. So yeah, I just had such a hard time. And I had this moment where I just didn't really want to be around anymore, And I never went to the space of like actually thinking that I would ever harm myself to, the extent of not being here. But I was emotionally in that place of just feeling like I don't understand how I'm supposed to keep going. And so I went inside my closet and I was like hysterically crying, and I just prayed to God because I'm a very spiritual person and I've always been. And I just was kind of like, I just take this pain away. Please help me find a way to not feel this devastated all the time. It was just way too much. And in that moment, I sort of heard this message that really changed my whole life. And I heard this message or voice, whatever you want to call it, say, this is not about you. So psoriasis there's a few different types, but the type that I had is really like it creates thick scales all over my body. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, it's visually really not appealing to look at. It is flaky. It can be red. It can be so dry that it's like white in some areas. But then on top of that, it creates it basically itches like chicken pox. So I would wake up, before high school and middle school, I would wake up almost every morning and my mom would have to change my sheets because I would scratch.
Oh my God.
So much in the middle of the night that I would just like bleed through my sheets.
Oh, shit.
I'm really passionate about is not feeling bad about having to take medication. I think there's so much in like the, mindfulness community or self-help communities that make people feel like, you've failed if you've had to take medication. And that's part of why it took me so long to decide to take something. And my doctor basically looked at me when I was 25 and was like, you're going to be completely immobile by the time you're 30 if you don't take something to stop.
So you're saying that you did a holistic approach and that didn't seem to work well, so you went with Western medicine, so that helped you a lot. So now my question is, why do you keep pushing holistic medicine now when Western medicine has helped you way more than holistic medicine has ever helped you?
I wouldn't quite say it that way. Things that we say in the community, but also in the live event, is that we do not allow for unsolicited advice because it just creates like such a lack of emotional safety. And it's because I've been through it. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that bold statement entirely. My culture is always a part of me in every moment. I think it's more that, things just happen that way. I don't know. I don't know that I would ever say that the Indian culture has been toxic for me because it's such a huge part of who I am.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to summarize it as basically their problem and they have to let themselves go. Or if they want to see then do it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that, I would never say those words like, it's your problem, figure it out. But I hear what you're saying. I think I just have compassion for we're all at different places at different times. And I have that compassion because I've been there. It's not coming from a place of sucks for you. You must, you got to figure it out. It's no, I really get it. And it's also I think the thing that always makes me the most nervous is it really matters to so many people. It's not just a nice to have or a fun, just hangout. It's this for so many of us. And I know for myself included, it can feel like this too. It just represents so much more than just one moment. It represents not being seen in so many other spaces.
Hello, welcome to my podcast, Two Mics, One Joe Suit. I'm Joe Suits. I'll be giving a mic to Nitika. Nitika is a wellness entrepreneur, motivational lifestyle guru, and certified life coach. She is dealing with psoriasis and psoriasis arthritis. You are a life coach now, helping others find self-love and confidence. Before you can help others, you have to be strong yourself. Let's start with your aha moment when you were 12, crying on your closet floor.
Hi, Joe. It's so nice to be with you. Wow, you just go straight in there, huh? No chaser, no warm up. Just
no,
what was the
dive into the good stuff.
What was the darkest moment of your life? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was about actually probably like I think about 15 when this happened. And yeah, I was just at the end of my rope. I was really going through so much. I had been living with psoriasis at that time for about 5 years, and my psoriasis within the first year developed like all over my body. So it was from the tip of my foot to the tip of my head. And it really dictated so much about my life, and it also really impacted my self-esteem. And then I also was just really bad at school. Like I've learned as I've gotten older that I'm just not a linear learner. I'm much more an experiential learner, things like that. But I didn't know that growing up. So yeah, I just had such a hard time. And I had this moment where I just didn't really want to be around anymore, And I never went to the space of like actually thinking that I would ever harm myself to the extent of not being here, but I was emotionally in that place of just feeling like I don't understand how I'm supposed to keep going. And so I went inside my closet and I was like hysterically crying, and I just prayed to God because I'm a very spiritual person and I've always been. And I just was kind of like, I just take this pain away. Please help me find a way to not feel this devastated all the time. It was just way too much. And in that moment, I sort of heard this message that really changed my whole life. And I heard this message or voice, whatever you want to call it, say, "This is not about you." And I was like, I was 15. So I was like, excuse me, everything is about me. What do you mean it's not about me? But it was so clear. It was one of those things that it wasn't a feeling or an idea. It was a knowing. I knew that whatever I had just heard was the truth, even though I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know anyone at the time. We didn't have like blogs. We barely had the internet. I didn't know what it meant to be a talk show host or do all these things. It was like, but I knew that that was true. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to believe that this is about something way bigger than I could ever imagine. So yeah.
I mean, just from doing research, I just think of psoriasis as more of a visual disability in the sense of like you having it and then other people react to you, so you become insecure about it. Was that, or is it more of a painful experience for you?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I think a lot of people, especially like when I was younger, that's what everyone sort of thought, right? And to be honest, like there was a part of me that also didn't fully understand like what I was even going through until I look back now and I'm like, oh, it was so much more than that. So psoriasis there's a few different types, but the type that I had is really like it creates thick scales all over my body. And so, yes, it's visually really not appealing to look at. It is flaky, it can be red, it can be so dry that it's like white in some areas. But then on top of that, it creates like, it basically itches like chicken pox. So I would wake up, before high school and middle school, I would wake up almost every morning and my mom would have to change my sheets because I would scratch
Oh my God.
so much in the middle of the night that I would just like bleed through my sheets.
Oh shit.
And yeah, and if you probably get this, like the way that physical torment impacts you mentally is so significant, and I think some people, even myself included at the time, like I just didn't even understand that because it was happening so fast. It was also like I was the only one that I knew of going through something like this. So I didn't understand even like if it was okay that it was that hard for me. And then other things like, I was afraid to wear dark colors for the longest time for most of my life, because I would flake, like how you see people who maybe have dry scalp.
Oh yeah.
Right? But my entire body was like that. So if you had invited me to come over to hang out and I sat on your like nice big black leather couch or something, I would get up and there would be like a snowfall like on the couch.
Oh my God.
So as like a kid, it was horrifying. you know? So, yeah, it was obviously like hard because everyone can kind of see your greatest challenges like right in front of you and you can't hide it, which I understand you probably get. And it was physically so painful and so tormenting. It's kind of like when your lips crack and bleed because they're so chapped. Like my entire body was like that. And it was like that for 17 years, you know? So it wasn't a small thing. It wasn't like a winter that it was bad. It was like for decades. So, yeah.
So I'm not like super familiar with psoriasis. I see it on
Yeah.
commercials all the time.
Yeah.
But so, but before we started talking, you said you mentioned an Indian culture.
Yeah.
So did the Indian culture influence the way you had that you were able to cure or I guess keep your psoriasis at a lower, or is it more of a technology improved that you were able to I keep psoriasis down? Because like looking at you now, I don't see anything, but you also you could have it in places that I can't see if you can cover it with clothes and such.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a little bit of both. So, like, one thing that my culture really influenced was there were a lot of years where I really searched for remedies that were more like Ayurvedic, natural, you know, more homeopathic, holistic, things like that. And I think my culture has really influenced me in the sense that, like, that those types of philosophies and ways of life are rooted in who I am, and they're really a foundation for how I live so much of my life. But there was a point after I had gotten psoriatic arthritis at 19, then at about like 25, I had been like almost completely immobile from like 20 to 25 because my bones and my joints had become so deformed and in so much pain that I couldn't actually like get up with ease to even just go to the bathroom. And I lived like that for the first half of my 20s. So at that point, I ended up going the more allopathic Western route and taking a medication that ended up helping me. And it's been a journey. It hasn't been like a one and done thing. It's been like trial and error, ups and downs. I do still have psoriasis. Usually my psoriasis shows up on my left leg. So I do still have some psoriasis. But yeah, it's not like to the degree that it was. Like literally, I'm just like, I don't even care that it's there because
Mm-hmm.
it's nothing compared to what it was. So yeah, so I think it's both. And I think something that I'm really passionate about is not feeling bad about having to take medication. I think there's so much in like the, mindfulness community or self-help communities that make people feel like, you've failed if you've had to take medication. And that's part of why it took me so long to decide to take something. And my doctor basically looked at me when I was 25 and was like, you're going to be completely immobile by the time you're 30 if you don't take something to stop
Mm-hmm.
the challenges that are happening with your body. So it pushed me to do that. But yeah, there's so often people are like shamed into thinking like if you haven't figured out how to do this, the mindful way and like to do it with, meditation and yoga and whatever, like then you've failed. And I just could not disagree with that more. I think if you believe in something greater than yourself and in a spiritual practice of any sort, like medicine is a part of that, I think, and it definitely was for me. And then bringing in my, wellness and mindfulness practices while I'm taking my medication has been really great. So it's sort of a holistic way that I try to look at it.
So you're saying that you did a holistic approach and that didn't seem to work well, so you went with Western medicine, so that helped you a lot. So now my question is, why do you keep pushing holistic medicine now when Western medicine has helped you way more than holistic medicine has ever helped you?
I wouldn't quite say it that way. So what I am saying is that I tried a lot of holistic natural medicines that were not enough. Absolutely, they were not enough. However, I also don't think like when I first started taking the medicine that had actually helped me, I kind of was like, whatever, now I can like eat everything and like not care
Mm-hmm.
about, like staying up late or I was like in my 20s. So I was like drinking, like whatever, I'm just gonna do whatever I want, you know?
Oh yeah.
And I found that wasn't it either. Right. So like first of all, I'm not pushing anything. Only thing I'm pushing is for you to listen to your doctor and figure out what's right for you. I do not have the answers for what other people are supposed to do. But what I found for myself is that in taking the medication, it also wasn't the only answer. I still have to be really mindful of what I eat. I still have to be really mindful of my overall lifestyle. So I don't think it's so much like holistic medicine. That's not really the way that I look at it, but it's more like a holistic lifestyle that supports me. And I think it's actually helped me with the medicines that I take. I think, and I mean, who knows? No one's done like studies on my body to tell me if this is true, but I think that I see a difference when I'm being more mindful in these other ways, like stress reduction and, being around a community that supports me and, sleeping better and taking some supplements and eating in a certain way. I think it supports the medicine that I'm taking in order to have that be more effective too. So that's more what I'm saying. I'm definitely not pushing like holistic, that it has to be holistic for sure.
Yeah, it just seemed like you had it's a multifaceted treatment that you have to do. So you mentioned
Yeah.
the medicine that you have to take, and then a diet, that's another thing, and then also kind of an environment thing too.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a vulnerable place or a weak state, you kind of surround yourself with like bad things too, and you just don't notice until you're better, and you're like, oh shit, this is not right. Like something has to change, and all
Yeah.
that. So it's like a multifaceted answer to it, and not something that takes like a month. Sometimes it takes like years just to like develop like self confidence and
Mhm.
just like strength really to do. And then also, if you're sick for a long time and you get better all of a sudden, like you mentioned, like oh, you should start. You do good, but you'll do the bad thing too, like drinking and probably doing all these crazy things too. Because I think it's natural. Like you're feeling better for the first time in a long time. You have no idea if you'll be good for a long time, so you gotta take advantage of everything, and then you realize like maybe not. Maybe I have to like cool down a little bit and like try to find like I guess your new normal.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it is a trial and error. And honestly, it's still a trial and error. I'm going to be 42 next week. And like,
Happy birthday!
thanks. And I've been dealing with my health, since I was 10. And it's still, even though in some ways, like my psoriasis and my psoriatic arthritis are doing so much better, I got a third chronic illness last year because
Oh no.
yeah, which is like a whole other thing that I've just been processing a lot. And so that's added more complications to the journey, right? And so now with that, now I'm like, okay, there's a whole new set of things that I have to learn. And the things that I was doing a year ago that I was like, oh, this is great. Like I feel so great. It's like that does not work anymore. Now I have to do a whole other level of stuff. So I guess, yeah, I just don't think I actually think anyone who tries to sell you on like this is the way, I think is lying to themselves and then to you, because I think the only thing I'll ever sell anyone on is that like you are your own best like advisor and you are the one who's going to really know, and it's always changing, and like allowing yourself to be okay with that is a really big part of it.
Yeah, I mean I don't know like about you. Like you don't advocate as much, or you're not visually like no one can visually see that anything's wrong with you. Like you have it on your left leg, but I'm sure you cover it with something. But no one would visually think anything is wrong with you in like a deep sense. But like everyone knows something wrong with me, obviously. So I get a lot of like, hey, this is the way to do this, or do this yoga, or
Oh
something.
yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna work. But I also don't like it at the same time because a lot of the chronic ill are like kind of weak in a way. That's just from their body just battling against them. So you kind of like get submerged into it. Like you want to find a solution, which is really difficult to fight back. And some of them are pretty ruthless. They'll just keep hounding
Mhm.
you and trying to like carry you and like this is the way. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like you have to like chill out a little bit. Like I have my own shit to deal with. I don't need another one. Like I don't like I'm not I'm kind of against the whole holistic approach because I have done it and I didn't have good experiences, and I just think it's crazy, but also weird because it did help some people too. So it's like
I know.
I don't say no, but it's like maybe it helped you. I think sometimes it's just psychological too. Maybe something in your mind goes like, "Did it gonna help you?" Maybe it didn't help you, but like
Mhm.
your mind is so strong that it did help you, which is weird too. And it's like I don't know. It's like I don't want to promote it though because personally for me, I need real medicine to help me because there's no other way to do it. Like if I could pray my ass off to maybe get better, I wouldn't be advocating at all. I'd just be drinking and skydiving and all that good stuff.
I really get that. I appreciate you saying that. I think I really resonate with that. I mean, there was a time in my early 20s when I first got diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis that I moved to India and I
Mm,
lived there for like 6 months. And I did this acupuncture treatment. And I really like acupuncture. I think it can help for a lot of things, and it has helped me over the years. But in this particular time, my psoriasis was so bad, and my arthritis had just started, but it was getting really bad. And basically, I moved there and I did acupuncture for 6 months, 6 days a week, twice a day.
whoa.
Okay, so it was like a super intensive, holistic approach, right? Well, long story short, when I finally moved back to the States, everything that had been helped or the ways that had gotten things had gotten better, it all came back. And I'm not saying that
Huh.
that's everyone's journey, but it was not like a permanent fix for me. It was not something that I could sort of force into submission, which is kind of how I think about it now, is sort of what I was trying to do, but I didn't know it at the time. And so I really get that for a long time. And even now, like with the work that I'm doing with Chronicon and stuff, one of our biggest like things that we say in the community, but also in the live event, is that we do not allow for unsolicited advice because it just creates like such a lack of emotional safety. And it's because I've been through it so often. People, I mean, yes, now you can see, now you might not be able to see my psoriasis so blatantly, but don't forget, like I lived for 2 decades with people seeing it all over me, right? So I would get
Hmm.
into a taxi cab here in New York City, and a lot of the cab drivers were Indian or brown, and they would be like, "Oh, you should try this, cream," like literally in the cab, and I'm just like, dude, if it was that simple, I would have already tried it. Like, why are you saying this to me? And it's this kind of thing where it feels like you're sort of diminished in that moment. Like, do you think that I've been struggling with this for this long and I haven't tried 1,000 things? So I really, really get that. I really get that. And I think, yeah, I guess I don't really think of what I do now as like holistic or like that kind of a therapy in that way. I more just think of it as like trying to have a mindful lifestyle because I want to support my body the best that I can. But it's definitely not something that I think is like the cure to anything or anything like that. I need a lot of medication to be okay.
I'm gonna make a bold statement. I think the Indian culture has been toxic to you, and I'm just thinking of the timing of you actually getting better around 25, and that you were an adult now, and you were kind of submerging yourself with people. I'm assuming not Indian, and then maybe that has helped you go to the doctor and go and maybe try a different treatment, like something that may actually work, and it did work. So I think just you getting older had led you to that place that you can become cured, and then now you're like throwing up an event for other mental ill people too. So I think that's what happened. You just submerge yourself with a different culture, and I guess you saw a different light or something, and that has helped you more than what the Indian culture had been practicing for thousands of years. But doesn't make sense because if they've been practicing for thousands of years, why do we have so many diseases now? So it's kind of like, yeah, but it's like, no, it's not going to work because we're still dealing with all the shit.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that bold statement entirely. My culture is always a part of me in every moment. I think it's more that, things just happen that way. I don't know. I don't know that I would ever say that the Indian culture has been toxic for me because it's such a huge part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so meaningful to me, to be Indian, and I'm so proud of it. But yeah, I think it was more just a matter of like, I was mentally in a space of trying to force myself to heal, And so I don't necessarily feel like it was like the Indian culture that made that be that way. I was also just in that place. And then when I went through a series of things, I realized like, oh, that's like actually surrendering in the moment and being okay with where I am allowed for other things to come in that truly supported me. But yeah, I don't think that was my culture's fault.
No, I'm just making an observation, and I
Yeah.
appreciate your side of the story too.
Yeah.
But let's talk about not us anymore, but let's talk about other people because you are a life coach and you help other, I'm assuming mostly or all women to find themselves. So, do
Well,
you
men and
think that
non-binary folks are welcome too, although we don't have as many men and non-binary folks in our communities, but we're always welcoming men and non-binary folks. So
oh,
yes, but for other humans for
we're
sure.
gonna we'll get into that a little bit. We'll get into that. So do you think it's an environment problem or a personal problem of women being, I guess, insecure about themselves?
In terms of what, like the fact that we don't have as many men, or what do you
Oh
mean?
no, that well, for like you have a life coach job, so like, why do you think there's so many insecure women where women like you have a job to be a life coach?
Oh, I don't know if I would phrase it that way. You know, I got trained to be a life coach when I was in my early 20s. So now what I do is, it's always connected to coaching, but it's actually much more than that, I would say. It's more about the content creation, curating community, producing events. It's, my life coaching background is there, but it's not so much of like the center of what I'm doing all the time. So yeah, I don't know. And I also don't think that like I was seeing life coaches before when I was younger, and I don't know it's if I would say, oh, it's because I'm so insecure that I have to see a life coach. I actually think it's because like I wanted more for myself. So I think it's kind of an empowering thing that folks want to get support, and yeah, they want more for themselves, and they know that something isn't working or something's not clicking in their life, so they're like, let me go find someone to support me in getting where I want to go.
Yeah, I can see from that. Yeah, I don't know. I always think no one. I think most people can't live by themselves. Like we need some kind of control, not control, but we need guidance to do a lot of things because I don't think most of us can just like we need like some person to like help push us if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I think that's a beautiful thing. Like whenever I talk to people, I see versions of myself reflected in everyone, right? And to me it's a spiritual experience. So like in my way of thinking, we are all connected in some greater way. That's just how I've always believed. It's not a religious belief. And so when I talk to people, I see parts of myself reflected in them. I understand myself more just by being in conversation with people. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's like, it's really motivating to want to surround yourself with people who are going to show you different things about yourself and that you like allow yourself to continue to grow.
Do you ever have clients that you just can't help no matter how hard you try?
Well, I haven't had like clients like that in a long time, or just like one-on-one clients in a long time, because I do more like group stuff with my community. But I will say that the work that I do is really for someone who's like ready to have the audacity to hope for more and like have the audacity to want to figure out what thriving looks like for them. And I know from my own experience, like I was not always that person. When I was in my early 20s, if someone told me to have hope and like figure out what thriving meant for me, I would be so frustrated at them. Like I was barely moving. I was in so much pain. I was like so emotionally exhausted. I was also married at the time and I got divorced in my mid 20s. So like there was just so much pain happening on every level that if someone had told me you need to have the audacity to thrive, I would be like, go fuck yourself, basically. I would be like, I hate you. So I know that it's like it's only now and being at a certain age, but also at a certain point in my journey that I'm able to say like, okay, I'm ready for that. Like I really want more for myself than to put myself in a specific box. That's just not where everybody is, you know? So I've had to kind of accept that, and I'm actually really okay with that. I feel like there's lots of support groups or, you know, different communities or organizations or coaches that are really ready to get into the trenches with people who, you know, might not be ready to hope for more. And I think that's just a specific type of conversation. And I think this conversation is about something different. So it's really about, people who are ready for that.
I'm just gonna summarize it as basically their problem, and they have to like let themselves go, or if they want to see like the new light, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess that, I mean, I would never say those words like, it's your problem, figure it out. But I hear what you're saying. I think I just have compassion for like, you know, we're all at different places at different times. And I have that compassion because I've been there. Like, it's not coming from a place of like, sucks for you. Like, you must, you know, you got to figure it out. It's like, no, I really get it. And I would not have been ready for this conversation at certain parts of my life either, you know?
Yeah, this is why you're a life coach and I am not.
It's all good.
Yeah, so I know you've been on QVC selling $300 worth of inventory in 7 minutes. We've been talking for a good while now, and you have a very warm presence. So sell yourself on why you make a good life coach.
Well, first of all, it's $300,000 in 7 minutes, just to be clear.
What did I say? 30,000?
You said $300.
Oh shit! No, I'm sorry. 300,000.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I normally wouldn't correct you, but that is a big difference.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, I don't care at all. I don't care at all.
Well, QVC does.
Yeah, QVC does. Exactly. Oh my God, if I had only sold $300, they would have fired me.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks. Well, it wasn't my money, it was the brand's money. But anyway, I mean, as I said before, like the life coaching part is such a small part of what I do. It's actually what I do is create community. I am really, really passionate about content creation, and I love creating content for communities and people who like really are looking to be seen through the content that I create versus doing it on social media, which I think is, you know, it can be like a trap kind of like machine sort of feeling on social media at times. But when I do it for my community and our app, it's just like a totally different experience and totally different feeling. So I love that. And and I'm the founder of an event, which we're doing in May. And we launched that in October of 2019. I'm like trying to find my words. In October of 2019, and it was an incredible, successful experience, and now we're bringing it back. But yeah, the life coaching thing is, as I said, just like a small part of what I do.
So let's talk Chronicon. So you say you started in 2019, so I don't know if it will be your 4th year, but I think you skipped some years, so I think this is your 2nd year of doing it in person. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we did our first one before we even knew what a pandemic was. And it was a huge success. We sold out weeks before the event. We had we had thousands of people live streaming the event online. We had just some like incredible success around that first event. And then I was just like a week away from putting down a deposit for the next venue and basically found out that the world was going into lockdown. And
oh no.
Yeah.
It seemed like ages ago.
Oh my God, it really does. It really, really does. And and we basically, I basically was like, okay, how do I do this? Like, I've been doing live events. I started my entrepreneurial journey in 2010, and I have been doing live events since December of 2009. That was my first live event that I ever did. It's just a huge part of what I love to do. It's a huge part of my self-expression and all of that. So I was pretty devastated, and then decided to create an online offering, which has actually been like one of the greatest blessings, I would say. I don't think the pandemic has been a blessing, but this is definitely a blessing that has come out of it, because I did not have the bandwidth as a solo founder to do like all of the production for the in-person event and then like build an online presence or app or specific community at the same time. I was always feeling really pulled. And so the fact that the live events were sort of taken from me and like I couldn't do those anymore, I really had to focus on the digital component. And now we have our own app, which people can get in the App Store. And it's beautiful. It's meant to be like warm and inviting and just like really supportive. And we have content every day in there, and workshops multiple times a week, and that you can Zoom in from anywhere around the world. And then we also have, the next live event happening finally on May 19th. And that's happening in Brooklyn. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful day. I mean, it's been such a journey for me as a founder to get us to this place. I think sometimes people look at Chronicon and they think, we're this like huge organization or something. And I'm like, no, y'all, just like one woman of color with 3 chronic illnesses over here, like building this one brick at a time. Like, it's not, some like Wizard of Oz, like fancy machine happening. It's just like, no, it's really me. So I'm really grateful for all the people who have like stepped up to support. The community has been amazing. They were like the first ones to buy all their tickets, and just, and I'm just like building it one brick at a time. So it's been a journey.
So you had one last year. So what did you learn from last year that you're going to incorporate this year?
Oh yeah, we had our first one was in 2019. So we haven't had one since then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we haven't had one since then. But I mean, so this is only our second one. But we have events all the time in the app, but just not this kind of event.
You nervous? You ready for it?
So yeah, I mean, I'm so ready, but I'm definitely nervous. I mean, this is like such a huge undertaking. And it's also like, I think the thing that always makes me the most nervous is like, it really matters to so many people. Like, it's not just like a nice to have or like a fun, just like hangout. It's like this for so many of us. And I know for myself included, it can feel like this too. It just represents so much more than just like one moment. It represents like not being seen in so many other spaces. It represents like feeling left out in other spaces. It represents like wanting to be included in this really beautiful, significant way, that we deserve to be celebrated in ways that we often aren't, like all of those things. So it's a little bit of pressure, Joe. It's a little bit of pressure.
I mean, with all your experience, I think you can handle it.
Well, I'm handling it, so here we are. But yeah, I definitely feel it for sure, and it matters to me, Yeah.
Hey, I think you did great, if I can say something. So I know you have 3 men and a bunch of women as speakers. I also know mostly women will be at the event anyway. So in a general sense, why do you think there are way less men talking about mental health and being advocates?
Yeah, it was a struggle in our first event too, like in 2019. One of the men that we had speak, I literally went up to him at an event and was just like, you need to speak at Chronicon because we need more men. And like, it's really hard to get men to speak. And thankfully he said yes, and he was amazing. But I think there's a lot of things. I think partly is probably because of like the people who gravitate towards me, first of all, because a lot of the people that speak are people that I have like relationships with or people that I've known for a long time. We've collaborated in other ways, so I think that's like a small part of it. I think it's also just like there is typically more stigma for men. I know I've talked to men about speaking out and like talking about their journey more, and they just don't feel as supported to do that. I mean, you're obviously like an amazing example of that not having to be the case, but like a lot of men that I talk to do not feel that way, and they do feel more embarrassed or shy. I mean, I know we have some men in the community in our app, but it's rare. It's like we're always like, anytime a man joins, we're always like, hello, we're so happy you're here. So I think people might think that we're like, we only want women in the community or we only want women involved. And I'm just like, no, y'all. I want non-binary folks. I want men. I want women. I want just human beings, and all different types of human beings are important to have in the conversation, because there's things about the male experience or the non-binary experience that I will never know, and I don't think I will ever know that stuff. So yeah. So anyway, I think it's been challenging because, yeah, a lot of folks who identify as men are just not as open to it. But I'm trying, just so you know, it's something I'm always working on, and it's not for lack of effort. I will say that. So yeah, it's something I'll continue to work on, and hopefully we'll be able to do this next year too. And this is like our first year, building back from the pandemic too. So I think it'll just be nice to see what's possible, like as we continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you in the sense of it's hard finding men to interview because I've been trying, I try to keep it like even in terms of men and women, and it's impossible in the mental health space. And then, like different race and like you mentioned, like different. So it's hard to really, sometimes you're just limited by the choice and it happens. But I mean, I also would think most women would are more comfortable being with other women too. So I think that's played a role in it too. But I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like me doing my mental health thing, I don't, I still think most people don't care about it, and I get that. Just for me, in my case, I just don't care what people think. They've
Yeah.
been doing it anyways. But I think most people just don't care about men's health problems at all. 'Cause we're always so like looked up to that we have to solve every single problem and be like the man of the, I guess, of the world, and we're just down with that. And I think, I mean, it's difficult. I think we have to be strong because if we're, let's say, women or men are both weak, then no one's gonna help because someone has to step up to play if something bad happens. And like most of the time, men will be looked at to look to, but also, I mean, I also wish I could be a woman for like a week to experience, just to experience what the way they think of things too. Cause
Yeah.
not, we both don't think the same way. So
Hmm.
like the way maybe mental health affects you will affect me differently, and I think there's something just the way how brains are wired that we just handle mental health differently too. I think that
Hmm.
plays a huge role of how we just handle things. I'm not, and then the environment comes into play. That's a big role too. But I think just the way we think just handles it differently too,
Yeah.
and we can do that. But if you're looking for a guy to help speak at your next event, let me know. I know one that lives in Brooklyn already, and then I live in Manhattan.
Oh, you do live in Manhattan? I was wondering where you live. Okay, well, you have to come to Chronicon. I hope you're going to be there.
I have to check if I can because I need people to help me out around, so I'll see if I can make it. I think it's in May. I have to see. I have to check if I can do it. But yeah, if you ever need speakers, I know a guy he also has a podcast, so we're great speakers in general, so I can
Oh,
recommend.
amazing. Amazing. I'd love to know about him.
Yeah, so before I
Yes.
take the mic away from you, is there anything you want to say, promote any words of wisdom, the winning lottery numbers, and the mic is all yours.
No, but thank you so much for having me on the show. I really loved our conversation, and yeah, I hope that your audience, checks out Chronicon. Another thing I do want to always say is that our community is $25 a month, so it's less than $1 a day. But I am super passionate about making sure that anyone who wants to join the community, as well as anyone who wants to attend Chronicon, whether it's virtual or in person, all you have to do is fill out a scholarship application. I have never not given someone who's filled out an application a scholarship. It's really, really, really important to me because I know that most, chronically ill and disabled folks, like, we're already not in systems that are supporting us to thrive and like make money. And it's a problem that is much bigger than you and I. So whatever I can do to support someone, like if they want to be there, if they want to be a part of what we're doing and they just don't have the money to do it, I do not ever want money to be a reason why someone is not involved in what we're doing. Some of the most active and incredible people in our community are folks that I gave a full scholarship to, and they add so much value to what we're doing every single day because they are there and they're amazing and they're just incredible people, and their money is not what makes them valuable, you know? So I just want to say that. I think people often see what we're doing or see our branding or whatever and think, oh, they're charging all this money. And I'm just like, y'all have no idea. Just 50% of our membership and our ticket sales goes to folks who can't afford it. So it's really important to me. I just want to make sure I say that if anyone's interested in applying.
Yeah, I mean, also things cost money too to run things, so that has to go into play. And
yeah,
I was going to say something else. Shit. Thank you, Nitika, for so much giving me your time and expertise. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye.